Good morning everybody. Today I will be talking about the sources of exogenous entrapments, how they are revealed by either EDX or WDS attachment of scanning electron microscope. So, first I will be talking about what are the complex oxides which can get entrapped as large NMIs, non-metallic inclusions. This is important to remember the different types. I have mentioned that in a cast product it is not uniformly present. Certain areas of the product normally you find more such entrapments, and certain areas they are relatively free from entrapments. Now, what are the possible entrapments? What are the possible sources? That is very important to understand, because that will help us in identifying where from they are coming, how we can control it, whether we can totally restrict it. At least the large ones we should be able to restrict them, so that they do not cause further quality problems. So, let us see what are the complex oxides which can be present as large entrapments. Entrapments mean they get entrapped, these large inclusions they get entrapped at different stage of liquid steel, and finally they will, unless they are taken care of in the liquid steel itself, they can get into the cast steel also and create problem in during subsequent processing in the final product and things like that. So, let us see what are the possible oxides, complex oxide. Now, aluminum oxide along with minor silicon and manganese oxide, you know where from they can come. First, what we are doing is we are deoxidizing the steel. So, during deoxidation, if you allow certain sufficient time for the deoxidant products to float up, the large ones particularly they will float up and get absorbed by the slag which is on top of the liquid steel, and the large ones at least are taken care of. Maybe you can have some very fine ones, say about 10 micron or 15 micron in size. I am talking of the deoxidation products. So, those are not really of much OD, they are benign in nature, they will not create many quality problems in subsequent stages. So, the large deoxidants, deoxidation products, they can be taken care of. Now, we have done everything for deoxidation, we have made a good clean steel, we have taken care of desulfurization, we have taken care of other gaseous elements like nitrogen and hydrogen to some extent. But finally, when you are handling the liquid steel, if it gets in contact with air, what can happen? There is a possibility of reoxidation taking place, or even nitrogen pickup is possible. So, these reoxidation products are normally found to be relatively large in size. So, they can constitute as large entrapment, and this will create a problem, quality problem during subsequent processing and the final product. So, reoxidation product, that means when the liquid steel which we have prepared so carefully during secondary refining, when it comes in contact with air either in tundish or during casting in the mold, there are every possibility of liquid steel, refined steel which has relatively less amount of oxygen, they get oxidized, we call it reoxidation, because we have deoxidized the steel, oxygen level is low. Now, if this steel comes into contact with air, there is a possibility of oxygen pickup, because the oxygen level is low. So, there is a possibility of oxygen pickup, and this is called reoxidation. So, reoxidation product is very much a matter of concern, we have to be careful about it. We should not allow reoxidation to take place while handling the liquid steel, the refined steel. during, I have talked about it earlier, how we can take care of it, but now I am giving a caution that reoxidation product is a source of large entrapment. Now let us come to the another one. This is basically, reoxidation product is basically aluminum oxide with some minor silicon and manganese oxide. Why aluminum oxide? Because we have killed the steel for taking care of the oxygen for deoxidation. So there is some aluminum present in steel. So this aluminum gets oxidized in preference to iron and other elements, because aluminum oxide is a very stable oxide compared to iron oxide or other oxides, manganese oxide. So aluminum oxide along with minor silicon or manganese oxide, if it has been killed with some amount of silicon and manganese is present in steel, there is a possibility of aluminum oxide getting associated with silicon or manganese oxide. Now for a stainless steel which have lot of chromium, we have found that chromium oxide is also present due to reoxidation. So for normal steel, aluminum oxide is normally the reoxidation product, but for stainless steel which have rather lot of chromium, stainless steel has lot of chromium in it. So there is a possibility of formation of chromium oxide in stainless steel as a reoxidation product. Next, we can also get large entrapment from nozzle clogging product. What is that? When we are doing casting, the sub-entry nozzle, that means sub-entry nozzle is the, I have mentioned that it is basically a refractory channel which is helping the liquid steel to come from the tun dish to the mold, cast mold, continuous casting mold. So if there is a oxygen ingress in this process in the tun dish, what can happen is there is a possibility of nozzle which is not a large area, which is having nozzle means is basically small area through which liquid steel is coming from the tun dish through the sub-entry nozzle to the mold. So at the port of the nozzle, which is very small in size, that can get clogged because of reoxidation. So that clogged product, nozzle clogging product is a matter of concern, because it might get dislodged during casting and get entrapped in the steel, and if it gets entrapped in the mold, there is not much of time for it to float up and get absorbed in the mold slag. So nozzle clogging product is one important large entrapment which is a matter of concern. We have to be careful about clogging, and then nozzle clogging product will not come in steel. If you can take care of clogging, that means why clogging is taking place? Because of reoxidation of the steel, because there is some oxygen ingress either in tun dish or in mold. Because of that, there is a possibility of nozzle getting clogged, and the clogged product, clogging product can constitute as a large entrapment, which is again rich in aluminum oxide, or in stainless steel it can be even chromium oxide. So this nozzle clogging product, it may be something else also, I will come to it later on, the nozzle clogging product. Anyway, another possible large entrapment is the refractory erosion product. I have mentioned many a times that all metallurgical vessels has refractory lining, whether it is ladle or it is tun dish, they have to be protected from the high temperature steel, liquid steel. So there is a refractory lining. So this lining, if it is not proper, if the temperature of the liquid steel is quite high, or there is a lot of turbulence in the liquid steel, then there is a possibility of refractory erosion, the refractory lining getting eroded. So what is the problem? The problem will be this refractory erosion product can get entrapped in liquid steel, and there is a possibility of it is going to the final cast product. So this is another matter of concern. Now I have mentioned earlier that slag, you have slag in any metallurgical reaction, in metallurgical vessel, like you have liquid steel, on top of that you have slag. Slag is basically what? It is basically a combination of different oxides. So, these oxides are relatively lighter in weight compared to liquid steel, that is why they float, go to the top of the liquid steel and form a slag layer. Now, in the ladle, if the slag gets entrapped, then there is a problem. So, now the ladle slag is normally very rich in calcium oxide, because the slag, as I mentioned earlier, must have high basicity. The calcium oxide here is maybe more than 50%, and the others oxides, whether it is aluminum oxide or silicon oxide or even different types of other oxides, they constitute less than 50%. So, this ladle slag which is rich in calcium oxide, there is a possibility of it getting entrained in liquid steel or entrapped in liquid steel. Now, let us come to the tundish. Again the tundish slag there is a possibility of getting entrapped or entrained. Now, how do you distinguish between ladle slag and tundish slag? I am talking of from the composition point of view. Tundish slag is normally relatively rich in silicon oxide. So, it has, because there is a rice husk at the top of tundish, which is given for control of reoxidation, for control of temperature loss. So, this rice husk is basically very rich in silicon. So, this silicon oxide can go to slag, it goes to slag rather, and the slag which has also calcium oxide. So, this silicon oxide is relatively rich in tundish slag compared to ladle slag. So, you can distinguish between ladle slag and tundish slag from the chemistry of the slag, chemistry of the oxides which are present. Now, when we come to mold slag, the mold slag has fluorides, it has sodium oxide, it has calcium fluoride, it can have potassium oxide some amount of. So, this sodium oxide and potassium oxides you do not find in ladle slag or tundish slag. So, this is a signature for mold slag. If we find in the final exogenous entrapment in the defect area of the steel that there is some sodium is present, sodium oxide is present or calcium fluoride is present, normally we come to a conclusion that it basically is coming from mold slag. So, why I am again and again harping on the different chemistry of the slag, different slags, ladle slag or tundish slag or mold slag, because this helps us in identifying the source or genesis of the entrapment. Okay. Now, let us come to another entrapment, which is Lazelle nozzle sand. I have told you that when you are before tapping from the primary steel making vessel like BOF or EAF or induction furnace, you are tapping liquid steel from that basic oxygen furnace to the ladle for doing subsequent secondary refining. But at the bottom of the ladle normally there is a opening through which liquid steel can come down from ladle to subsequently to tundish. So, that bottom, what is called the ladle bottom, either it can be a slide gate or it can be some other type of clearance through which liquid steel can come out of the ladle. So, that has to be covered, that has to be closed before you are pouring or tapping liquid steel from the primary vessel to the ladle. So, that is called ladle nozzle sand. At the nozzle area you have to put some sand before you are tapping, and then when you are finally allowing the ladle steel in the ladle after secondary refining to pour it from the ladle to the tundish, then you open the slide gate and then only the slag or not the slag, the nozzle sand which has been put there for taking or closing the opening, that might fall into the liquid steel in the tundish. So, what is going to be the problem? That is an exogenous material. it has a lot of oxides. So, that is not desirable. So, you have to take care that this sand, nozzle sand should not fall in the tundish when you are opening the ladle nozzle. So, it is very rich in zirconium oxide, it has some amount of aluminum oxide also. So, this if they we find that there is a lot of zirconium or zirconium oxide in the entrapment which has been detected in the defect area, we know that possibly it is from the ladle nozzle sand. So, all these large entrapments which are larger in size, more than 50 micron, more than 70 micron or more than 100 micron in size, they can result in surface lamination in the final product. So, they are entrapped in the steel, entrained in the steel, and finally, when you are processing the steel, when you are making the steel, making the final product from the inside of the steel, cast steel, they will come to the surface and they can show up as a surface lamination, because it is different from liquid steel, from the steel rather. So, their formability is different. So, either they will come to the surface as inclusion as such, entrapment as such, or they might create cracks as well. So, whether it is found as entrapment or a crack along with crack, associated with crack, we can identify them so that we know where from these entrapments have come. Now, as I was talking about the here the as I was talking about nozzle clogging, here we are talking of the nozzle clogging product. So, now let us see how during casting which can affect the castability. Castability getting affected means whatever liquid steel is coming from tundish to the mold, the flow of that liquid steel will get affected because of nozzle clogging, sub-entry nozzle getting clogged, the ports of the sub-entry nozzle getting clogged. Now, what are the problems? The problem can be large deoxidation products, reoxidation products, or any reaction which is taking place between liquid steel and the refractory. So, what are the possibilities? I have mentioned about alumina, which is quite common as deoxidation products and reoxidation products. That can be titanium oxide, those steel which has small amount of titanium. Titanium is very prone to oxidation like aluminum. So, there is a possibility of titanium oxide. Then there is a possibility of calcium oxide and alumina combination. There is a possibility of calcium oxide, alumina, and then calcium sulphide. This actually comes from calcium injection. I have mentioned about calcium injection. So, whether it can form calcium oxide or it can form calcium sulphide depends on how much of sulphur is present in the steel or how much oxygen is present in the steel. Depending on the relative proportion of oxygen and sulphur, there is a possibility. Now, if there is a calcium sulphide formation, its melting point is relatively low. So, this combination of calcium sulphide, calcium oxide, alumina, it is calcium sulphide is as I mentioned, melting point is relatively high. That is why it can form a solid constituent and cause castability problem. So, from the color also you can make out if the nozzle has got clogged and the color of the clogged material is white, it can be alumina or it can be titanium oxide. If it is green, normally it can be calcium oxide or alumina combination. If it is black, it can be calcium sulphide or combination of calcium oxide, alumina, calcium sulphide combination. So, some oxide, typical oxide which has caused clogging, from the color itself you can make out, or you can analyze it in the final steel as a defect, as I will be talking about that through EDX or WDX attachment of scanning electron microscope. So, you know what are the elements present, and from there you know what are the constituents, possible constituents. Now, this castability problem can also happen due to solid steel getting built up. Why? Because of the low superheat. Because normally there has to be a superheat. What is superheat? Is the temperature of liquid steel during casting which is above the liquidus temperature. Normally the superheat is say 30 degree, 25 degree, 35 degree, but if it is very low 5 degree or say very near to 0, what can happen? Solid steel can get, the steel can get solidified at the very small port areas. So, solid steel build up at the nozzle area, there is a problem. The solid steel which have due to segregation the melting point may be relatively low, like if there is calcium sulfide, if there is iron sulfide in steel, then iron sulfide the melting point of the steel comes down. So, there is a possibility of solid steel getting built up and choking the ports of the nozzle. So, there is a problem. Now, everything depends on the material and the geometry of the nozzle, because some material will help in building up. I am talking of the nozzle material, I am talking of the port, the nozzle. Normally these are very small in size. So, the material of the nozzle is very important, it helps in building up of the oxides or even solid steel, and even the geometry of the nozzle. What is the shape of the opening, whether it is circular, whether it is elliptical, or it is a square, rectangular, whether it is upside looking up and an angle, or it is looking down, everything is important. So, the geometry and material of the nozzle are also important while deciding how the castability will be affected, how the deoxidation and the reaction products will get deposited at the port of the nozzle. Now, this nozzle clogging, I was talking of the nozzle clogging, this Tundish nozzle basically means the sub-entry nozzle, because from Tundish liquid steel is coming to the mold through the sub-entry nozzle. So, by Tundish nozzle I mean the sub-entry nozzle port clogging, what I have been talking about. So, what are the factors which affect clogging? I have been discussing this. The picture shows how does it the clogged product looks like under scanning electron microscope. These are basically some solid particles. Now, what are those solid particles? You can know from the EPMA or rather EDX or WDX studies, which will tell us what are the elements present. I will come to it just after this. Now, what are the problems which can cause clogging? Steel cleanliness. By cleanliness I mean if the oxygen level of steel is high, there is a possibility of oxide formation. So, this is very important. Reoxidation in Tundish I have told, if there is a possibility of oxygen ingress in Tundish, then there is chance of reoxidation, and the reoxidation products are normally large in size. There is a possibility of them clogging the nozzle, the port of the nozzle, sub-entry nozzles, and creating problem during casting as well as for the quality of the steel. Air aspiration I have told that whenever there is a air ingress in sub-entry nozzles or in the nozzle from the ladle to the Tundish, we know that there is a refractory nozzle when liquid steel is coming through a refractory channel from the to the Tundish. So, there is a possibility of air ingress. So, we have to be always careful about some cover of argon cover, so that it does not air aspiration does not take place. Inclusion modification, there may be some inclusion at one stage of the process, but due to air ingress these inclusions can be modified. So, as I was telling you, calcium oxide you might having alumina because of oxygen ingress, so there is a possibility of calcium oxide alumina combination. The inclusion is getting modified. Due to during calcium injection, if the sulfur level is high in steel, the inclusion can modified and calcium sulfide, combination of sulfur, calcium sulfide, calcium oxide can form. Nozzle geometry I have told is important. Then reducible component in refractory. Refractory should be having less amount of carbon, because high carbon in refractory there is a possibility of it is getting reacted with oxygen in steel, and some amount of oxides getting formed. Fluid flow in TAN dish is also very important. This is important because the residence time in TAN dish should be more, so that the liquid steel should not simply flow from the TAN dish to the bottom. It should get sufficient time to flow in the TAN dish. There should be adequate positioning of dam and wear in the TAN dish, so that the circulation time in TAN dish, the residence time of liquid steel in a TAN dish is relatively high. So, that helps in floating up of the inclusion. As I was telling you, the inclusions, if they get sufficient time, they will float up. Larger inclusions will definitely float up if you give some time for them to float up and get absorbed at the layer of the slag, which is at the top of the liquid steel. So, fluid flow in TAN dish, we have to see to it that residence time in TAN dish is more. Low superheat, I have told you, it is there is a possibility of problem. Then high rate of heat loss, if there is not much of covered in the mold, covered in the TAN dish, there is a possibility of heat loss. So, if there is a possibility heat loss means there is a possibility, along with reoxidation, there is a possibility of solidification of steel. So, iron oxide might form, steel temperature might come down, all these will create problem of clogging and finally absorption of the clogged product and casting problem. Now, let me come to how will you detect such entrapments. How do you know what is the source of such entrapments? This is very important, I have been telling. So, now I will be talking about that. So, now suppose you have an defect area, you have some defect which you can see, or it may be very small, you cannot see with normal eye, but you can see it when you put the sample with defect under microscope. Now, when you put the sample under electron microscope, scanning electron microscope as such, what happens? Unlike optical microscope, here the beam is of electrons, electron beam is falling on the sample in scanning electron microscope. So, electron beam which is falling on the sample, what is the effect of it? First, you can see an electron image, the depth of focus is quite better. So, even if it is not plane, there is some undulations on the surface, like if there is a defect, there is a different types of defects I have talked about. The surface is not very smooth, so surface is a bit rough, surface near the defect I am talking about. So, you put the sample under the electron microscope, you can have a very good image of the defect area, because the depth of focus is much better in scanning electron microscope compared to optical microscope. That is number 1. Number 2, when electrons are falling on the sample, steel sample or the defect area, what is going to happen? Whatever elements are present in steel or in the defect area in the entrapment, they will generate X-ray. So, that is called characteristic X-ray, because why it is called characteristic? Because every element, because of its atomic number, it has a fixed energy and wavelength of X-rays which will come out. So, the energy and wavelength of X-ray coming out of oxygen, carbon, iron, silicon, aluminum, manganese, nitrogen, these are all different. This is unique, this energy and the wavelength for different elements are unique. So, if you can detect those X-rays which are getting generated within scanning electron microscope, electron beam is falling on the sample, sample may be normal steel or having defect. Defect means it might have some entrapment or it might be having some crack, whatever is the defect area, whether it is basic steel, base steel or some entrapment. So, whatever elements are present, they will generate characteristic X-rays. By characteristic X-ray I mean they have, every element have their own characteristic wavelength and energy level. So, our job is to detect the energy level and the wavelength of the different elements because X-rays are getting generated. You have to catch the X-ray with a collector and then you have to measure either the wavelength or the energy level in the X-rays. So, X-rays is having lot of different energy levels. Why it is so? Because different elements are present. If steel was having only iron, then the iron will generate only iron X-ray and nothing else. But incidentally, steel has other elements as well. It definitely has carbon, it has some amount of silicon, it has some amount of manganese. If it is stainless steel, it has some amount of definitely lot of chromium, it can have some amount of nickel as well. So, all these elements will generate their own characteristic X-rays having definite values of energies and wavelengths. So, by detecting the X-rays, by differentiating, discriminating their energy and wavelength values, we can know what are the elements present. Now, when you are using the energy level of the X-ray to distinguish between the elements present for the different energy level of the X-rays, we call it EDX attachment. E stands for energy, energy dispersive analysis of X-ray, X stands for X-ray. So, if energy of the X-ray is being used for dispersion, for discrimination of the elements, then it is called EDX attachment. It is based on the energy level for the different elements. But if the wavelength is used, then we call it WDX, wavelength dispersive analysis of X-ray. So, WDX attachment discriminates the wavelength levels generated by different elements. So, whether it is the EDX attachment or WDX attachment, this will help us in identifying the different energy levels or the wavelength level in the X-rays which are getting generated from the steel and the defect area, and in the process we will know what are the elements present. So, the detected elements and their concentration. Now, this is very important. If the concentration of an element is more, that particular wavelength, that particular X-ray will have large intensity. So, the intensity of every different X-ray component which is specific, which is characteristic of the element is also important, because we know what is the concentration. Like we know that in steel we have lot of iron. So, normally you find that iron peak, the iron peak of X-ray, the X-ray peak of iron from iron is very high intensity or very high intensity, because lot of iron is present. So, the intensity of iron X-rays which is coming out from the sample is relatively high. So, the concentration of the element can be known from the intensity of X-rays, and the which type of element is present can be known from either the wavelength or the energy level of the X-ray. So, the detected elements and their concentration, which we can know from this, they will reveal whether any exogenous entrapment is present in defect. Suppose we find only X-rays of iron, carbon, manganese, silicon, and that is all, or if it is stainless steel, maybe of chromium and nickel, if nickel is present, then we know that it is coming from the normal steel, no defect, no entrapment is present. First, from the look of the sample, we have to distinguish whether anything else is present, that means from the microstructure of the sample in the defect area, we have to find out whether any exogenous entrapment is there, any additional inclusion is present, or it is just the normal steel. That is what is important. And then if we find that exogenous entrapment is present, we would like to know what is it, what is the chemistry of the entrapment, where from it has come. So, this is possible only when we know what are the elements present and what are the possible constituents. If we find the aluminum intensity from the X-rays is high, that means high amount of aluminum is present, and oxygen is high, that means oxygen is present. So, it is aluminum oxide. So, the stoichiometry of the constituents which are present in the entrapment, it is possible to measure with the help of this attachments, with the help of this EDX or WDX attachments in SEM. So, this is a very powerful tool. We must utilize them to measure what are the elements present, what are the possible constituents. Now, let us see, I will now give you an example of actual measurement, actual X-ray, how do they look like, how the normal X-ray has been measured in SEM with the help of EDX attachment. Now, you will find it is normal stainless steel. So, what we are finding? We are finding iron is very iron X-ray. So, the iron peak is very high, it is basically 304. So, 18 to 18.5% chromium is present. So, chromium peak is very high. It has some amount of manganese, it has some amount of nickel. So, all those elements are giving X-ray peaks, individual peaks, and you will find these peaks, iron, you will find it is present only at a particular energy level. The x axis is the energy level. So, iron you will find at a specific energy level, chromium you will find at a specific energy level. You find two peaks of iron, one is the K alpha peak which is quite strong, another you find a small peak of iron which is K beta. I am not going into the details, those who understand X-rays they know that all these elements, whether it is iron or carbon or nitrogen or whatever elements, chromium or manganese or aluminum, they generate different X-ray peaks depending on what level of electrons are present at different levels. So, K alpha is normally the strongest X-ray peak. So, this longer peak, larger peak of iron is basically from K alpha and the smaller one for K beta. Similarly, for other elements, chromium also you find one peak is relatively high, other peak which you are not seeing is very small maybe. So, what is important to identify is that from normal steel you find only peaks of those elements which are present in steel like iron, chromium, nickel, manganese. You do not find any attachment, any entrapment here, because had there been anything else you would have found lot of other elements. Now, for the same stainless steel, now we will go to another area where there is a defect. How does it look like in a scanning electron microscope, and what is the EDX peak will tell us. Here you see there was a defect, we are now looking at the defect area. So, what is happening? Which peak is highest here? Incidentally, though it is stainless steel, and iron, the iron is the main element in any steel in fact, compared to the iron peak you find chromium is very, very strong, manganese is relatively strong compared to iron. So, what is the reason? I am talking of this in defect area. So, it indicates, I have mentioned here, that higher content of chromium and manganese over iron and nickel. What was expected was iron should be the highest, chromium should be next will be manganese or nickel and other elements. But here instead of iron, chromium peak is very high, manganese peak is also appreciably high. So, this is basically why it is happening. It is happening because in the exogenous inclusion, non-metallic inclusion, whatever we have found, it has been indicating of reoxidation of liquid steel. As I have mentioned earlier, reoxidation means there was some oxygen ingress either in the tundish or in the mold. So, oxygen ingress had reacted, oxygen has reacted with the liquid stainless steel and it has formed a reoxidation product, large reoxidation product, which I have told earlier reoxidation products are normally larger in size, which unfortunately did not have the time to float up and get absorbed. So, if it is happening in mold there is hardly any time. So, it has got entrapped or entrained in liquid steel and it has caused this large entrapment of reoxidation product has caused a defect. So, the defect we know now is associated with an entrapment, may be associated with a crack also. I am not showing here the microstructure, but if the defect area you see on the microscope I have shown earlier, common defects. There are cracks as if the new surface has been created, as if it is coming out from the steel surface, and along with that you may find sometimes large entrapments. So, here what we have done, we have focused the electron beam on the entrapment just to know what are the elements present, and from the EDX attachment we have measured the energy levels of the X-rays for the different elements, and from that intensity we can see that not only chromium and manganese are present, but they are present in large quantity in the entrapment. Earlier one we have shown that in normal steel how does it look like. Iron has the highest peak of X-ray because iron is relatively large in concentration in steel, in any steel and also in stainless steel, but because chromium was the next, about 18% chromium, you find chromium peak also relatively large. But here what is happening? You find iron peak is quite small, chromium peak is much larger, manganese peak is also appreciably large. So, that means it has formed due to reoxidation which is nothing but chromium and manganese oxide, combination of that. So, because of reoxidation we find lot of chromium oxide and manganese oxide in the entrapment. So, from this analysis, from this investigation of EDX attachment of ACM, we know that reoxidation is the problem. So, we now when we are next making the steel, we have to be careful about oxygen ingress, we have to be careful about, maybe we have to use more amount of argon sealing where from oxygen ingress has taken place. That means the possibly the argon, we have not used the adequate amount of argon. So, argon sealing was not proper. So, some oxygen aspiration, oxygen ingress has taken place. So, we have to be, we now know that we have to be careful. So, I have tried to explain that in a normal steel, the normal elements which are present, how they will generate X-rays, and when we have a specific entrapment which is different from the steel chemistry, how the X-ray peaks which get generated and which we are trying to catch with the help of EDX, energy dispersive analysis, for different identifying the different elements which are present. We know what are the elements present and how much of them are present. So, this is helpful in identifying what was the constituents, what were the constituents present in entrapment. And if you know that, then only in the future when you are making the steel, in the subsequent steps when you are making the steel next heat, we know how to take care, so that this problem does not happen. Now, I will show you another example. Suppose the top one shows here how the surface lamination looks like. I was talking of surface lamination, I have given examples earlier also, how does it look like. So, as if the surface is torn, getting torn, it is coming out, another additional surface is getting generated. If there was no entrapment, this will not happen. This is happening because there has been some entrapment, large entrapment in the steel. That is why when that entrapment is coming near the surface, so the steel surface is getting sort of torn, sort of crack formation is happening. So, this is called surface lamination, additional surface is getting generated. Why it is happening? Because the workability, when you are basically when you are hot rolling, the rollability of basic steel and the entrapment, which is basically a complex oxide, are different. Their plasticity are different, their formability are different. So, when we are hot rolling it, when it is at a depth inside the steel, maybe it is not creating any problem, but as with hot rolling we are allowing the whatever defects are there to come to the surface, near the surface, at subsurface and near the surface, then there is a problem. Then the differential plasticity, differential formability of the inclusion vis-a-vis the steel matrix they are creating this surface lamination or crack formation. Now, we want to know which rather exogenous entrapment cause this surface lamination. We want to know this so that it does not form in future. So, now what we have done, we have put the electron beam at the lamination area, and we have tried to see what are the constituents present. And it is interesting, just see, this one is this one at certain this is at very low magnification, maybe at 5 or so, but this one when you are seeing the secondary electron image under scanning electron microscope, it is at high magnification, maybe at 500 magnification or maybe more. So, you first see that lot of other constituents are present, it is not normally the steel. So, we want to know what are those constituents. So, what we do, you now set the, it is called X-ray image. We know first we have to analyze what are the elements present. Say we have found that calcium is present, we have found sodium is present, we have found silicon is present, we have found oxygen is present, and then we want to know where calcium is present in the constituent in the microstructure of the defect area. So, this is called X-ray imaging. Like we can image the secondary electron, we can image the sample using secondary electrons, we can also image using different specific elements, like we can get the image of using calcium X-ray. So, this is that. So, wherever calcium is present in relatively more amount, it will give white spots. So, from this calcium X-ray image we know which area is calcium rich. Similarly, the lower one is a silicon X-ray image, we know which area is rich in silicon. Similarly, the bottom left is a sodium X-ray image. So, we know which areas of the image are rich in sodium. So, this is also another way of very conveniently knowing what are the constituents present. So, as I have told you earlier, if sodium is present, we normally tell this constituent, this entrapment is basically mold slag. Mold slag, basically I am talking about the continuous casting mold, which uses as powder some amount of silicon oxide, some amount of calcium oxide, some amount of sodium oxide, some amount of calcium fluoride, these are all present. So, if sodium is present, we normally know that this has come from mold slag entrapment. So, looking at the defect using X-ray information, either X-ray mapping or at a particular location getting the X-ray images, we know what are the elements present and we know what are the possible constituents present. So, we now know that if sodium has been present means this entrapment has been caused or come from mold slag. So, mold slag entrapment or entrainment has caused surface lamination in this case. So, what I am telling is such information using EDX or WDX attachment of scanning electron microscope can easily identify the type of constituents present, what type of entrapments are causing problem, why the defect has taken place, whether it is just a crack formation or some entrapment has caused the problem. So, this is what is useful. If there was no entrapment, only crack formation, I had shown earlier one example that during cold processing there has been some crack generation, but there was no entrapment. So, basically it indicates lack of lubrication or too much of cold deformation which has caused crack formation, because we find only cracks and no entrapment, no exogenous non-metallic inclusion. So, presence of non-metallic inclusion indicates that in defect area indicates that there has been this has been the source of defect generation. This is a quality problem. So, we should know what are the constituents present. The EPMA or the analysis of EDX or WDX in SEM these are helpful. X-ray in study of X-rays, elemental X-rays are helpful in understanding what are the type of defects, where from they have generated, and what can be done to take care of it when you make the steel. So, I have told you what are the possible, first I have told you what are the possible complex oxides which are known as large entrapments, whether it is reoxidation product or nozzle clogging product or refractorization product or entrapment of slag or ladle nozzle slag, and normally these are relatively larger in size, more than 50 micron, sometimes more than 100 micron. So, they cause quality problems, they cause defects. We have found that small inclusions, say 10 micron or 15 micron, when they are present in steel, we have found they are present in steel, but there is no defect surrounding that small inclusion. The small non-metallic inclusion, that is why I am telling it is benign, it is harmless, it does not cause any problem, but large inclusions, entrapments, when they are present in steel, they will cause the defects, they will create problems. So, next I have talked about the castability problems, why they happen, what is the problem, like either the deposition of the deoxidation products or reoxidation products or reaction products at the port of the nozzles, they are creating problem. They have different colors, so we can know how to look like even if you do not analyze them. And then again the clogging product, I have told what are the possible factors. The air aspiration is the main issue, steel cleanliness is the problem. That means if large amount of sulfur or oxygen is present in steel, they might create clogging. So, nozzle geometry is important here, fluid flow in tundish is important here, you have to allow more residence time in fluid. So, these are the issues. Then I have told you actually how you do the measurements, actually how you know what are the constituents which are present in the entrapment. That I have told you with the help of WDX or EDX attachment in ACM. The X-rays are generated which are characteristic, every element has different energy level, different wavelength, and if you can detect them, if you know their intensity of the each X-ray, individual X-rays, then we know how much of element is present and what are those elements present. So, if it is a normal steel, we know what are the elements should be present, like in normal stainless steel we know iron, chromium, how much they should be present also we should know. But if there is a reoxidation product which is present as an entrapment, so here the intensity of the X-rays of the different elements, they are changed. Now you are showing more of chromium, more of manganese compared to iron. So, we know that this entrapment is rich in chromium oxide and manganese oxide. So, this is the culprit. So, we know now how to take care of it. Similarly, if mold slag has got entrapped, there is some sodium present, the X-ray image shows some sodium along with calcium and sodium, silicon and oxygen in the defect area. So, we know that this has come from mold slag. So, what I am again and again harping is this EDX or WDX attachment of scanning electron microscope will help us in identifying what are the elements present in the defect area or in proper steel, normal steel, and if something abnormal we find, some abnormal elements are present, that means they have come from some exogenous entrapments. So, now we know from our experience where from they have come and we have to be careful in future. So, the sources or the root cause analysis of the metallurgical investigation can help us in identifying where from these are coming. So, metallurgical investigation is very important in identifying where from these constituents are coming, entrapments are coming, and how to take care of them. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.